By the end of this video, you'll understand how Python code runs on your computer. Understanding this process gives a deeper appreciation of how Python works and can help you write more efficient programs, troubleshoot performance issues, and better understand errors when they occur. To demonstrate this, I have a file called greet.py stored on my hard drive. Inside it, there is one function named greet, which takes a name parameter and prints the message hello name. For example, if we call greet with argument Drani, it prints hello Drani. So what actually happens when you run this program? Let's walk through it step by step. Let's start by running the program using the command python greet.py. When this command is executed, the Python interpreter, the CPython, loads the code from disk into memory. This is the first step in preparing the program for execution. Next, the interpreter invokes its internal compiler. The compiler breaks the program code into small, meaningful pieces called tokens. And these tokens are then arranged into abstract syntax tree. Think of it as a structured blueprint of your code. Finally, the compiler compiles the abstract syntax tree into Python bytecode. A bytecode is a low-level representation of your code that the interpreter can execute efficiently. And here is something cool. If a cache version of the bytecode already exists in a .pyc file inside the pycat directory, Python may load that instead of recompiling the source file. This helps speed up execution for frequently used models. Once the bytecode is ready, the CPython virtual machine executes it instruction by instruction for each operation. The interpreter dispatches the operation code to a corresponding C function that implements the operation. These C functions are compiled into native machine code, binary instructions, zeros and ones, that the CPU understands. The CPU, using the program counter, fetches, decodes, and executes these instructions, manipulating Python objects in a memory as needed. This process continues until all instructions have been executed. Finally, when execution completes, the resulting values are stored in memory. If the program includes output commands, like for our case, our greet function has output command print that prints hello name. So the results will be displayed to the user on the screen if needed. And this is how Python code runs behind the scenes on your computer. Alright, now let's dive deeper and understand this practically, how Python code runs under the hood on your computer. So let's start by creating our Greet project folder. So I'm going to create our Greet project folder on our computer and calling it Greet. And I'm going to cd in Greet folder. So inside our Greet project folder, we are going to create our Python model called greet.py. So let's create our Python model greet.py. And now let's define our greet function inside this greet.py model. we are going to open this grid.py or the entire project on VS Code. So we have our project open on VS Code. Now we can start creating the grid function. So let's create the grid function. The grid function that takes name as a parameter and prints out name. Let's use fstring for this. Let's print hello name. So let's call the grid function with argument name equals to Johnny, and this will print for us hello Johnny. Let's save it. Now we have created our function that prints hello name. So let's compile this to see what happens. Let's go back to our command line. So before we compile, we can first check what is in this file and in this project folder. So right now we have only the grid file inside this folder. And if we can see what is in the grid, it's just the function that we have just written, the grid function named run. And Python interpreter cannot read this. So before this file reaches Python interpreter, it first gets compiled, and it's compiled to bytecode. So let's first compile this source code so that our Python interpreter can read. So in order to compile this, we write Python 3-m by compile, then the model name grid.py. So on hitting enter here, so now if we check, we have now two resources here. We have the grid.py and then the bytecode folder where now the bytecode is stored. The bytecode is the compiled Python source code. Before that, we can see it was only the grid folder. Now we have this. If we are to see what is in the bytecode folder, we can now see the Python bytecode, which is here, stored here, the grid.cpython bytecode. And in order to see how Python reads our source file, we can disassemble this code. So let's first disassemble to see how the Python interpreter reads our source code. So Python 3-m, we are going to use Python this model to disassemble our code. This grid.py. So this is how the source code get converted. So Python reads your source code and converts it into this format so that the Python interpreter can read and understand and execute your code. So let's print out and see what it gives us for us. So Python grid.py. So after converting it into bytecode to this format and reading, now here it prints for us hello Johnny. And we can see the process here. At first it loads global print, but here the print is null. And here now it calls hello and the name and this. So when the name is passed in the greet function as an argument, then here it replaces this name with whatever name you have given. And finally, now we are getting hello print. And this is how Python code runs under the hood on your computer. Thanks for watching.